All right,
Cool.
Justin, we are live. Thanks so much for joining. I'm super excited, and I know my audience is even more excited to see you here. I
Cool.
obviously know you from LinkedIn. You not only have a huge audience, but you have built such a fantastic community around you. But for those who might not know you yet, I think it would be fabulous if you, I don't know, just want to say a few things about yourself.
Sure. First of all, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's my first Substack live, so a new experience for me. My name's Justin. My last name is Welsh, and I have sort of an interesting career. I spent 10 years in healthcare technology as a sales leader. So I was a director and then a VP and then a chief revenue officer. And I helped build a couple of companies that would ultimately go on to be worth over $1 billion and had a great career there. And in 2019, I kind of burned out from that career. And I started writing on the internet and I started writing about my experience building those companies. And I was an early writer on LinkedIn, say late early 2019, and people seem to enjoy the writing, and so I built this small audience. And over the
That's an
next six,
understatement.
yeah, over the next 6 years, I would kind of go through different phases. And the way that I think about sort of writing and growing is I just write whatever I'm interested in that moment. So it started with, healthcare technology and building sales teams. And then it moved to talking about LinkedIn. Then it moved to talking about branding and one person businesses. And, now I've spent sort of the last 6 months, if you will, kind of talking about the intersection of life and business, really building a good life first and then supporting that with a strong business. And, to give you a sense of how that's resonated, I have about almost 800,000 followers on LinkedIn, about 550 on Twitter, and then I have a newsletter of 200,000 people on one platform, and I have another newsletter here on Substack with about 13 or 14,000 subscribers.
So I think that's very very summarized. And guys, I know that you are putting some questions there, and thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm in a cafe. I couldn't do it otherwise. I'm so sorry for that. So there might be a bit of background noise, but if you can excuse that and listen to us, I would so appreciate it. So, you know, again, thanks to everyone. If you have questions from your Justin, just put them here in the comments, and I'll make sure that we are going through them. So Justin, you have, you've been pretty much summarizing, but you've been very humble. So you have over almost 1 million followers, right, on LinkedIn there. And now you're moving to Substack. What made you come here? And by the way, just, I don't know, what is it, a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
You have already gathered a community of over 13K followers and subscribers, if I saw that correctly right now.
Yeah, that's right. And, I think there were a lot of things. So there's a few reasons why I went to Substack. I think the first reason is that, and I talked about this recently at an event that I was in New York, where, I can't ignore the oncoming onslaught of AI, artificial intelligence, right? It's obviously becoming a big part of everybody's life. And I think as it becomes more and more entrenched in our lives, the one thing that I hope it might take the longest to eventually replace or potentially never replace is human connection. And so what I wanted to do was, instead of looking for width, I'm looking for depth. And I thought that Substack was a great place to do a few things, to really lean into the creative writing side of my business and my life, right? It's not just my business, it's just a thing that I enjoy doing. So I chose Substack because I think it really forces you to be a creative writer. There's not a lot of there's no open API. You can't really build it like a business. Like, it really has a lot of constraints. And so it forces me to focus on the writing, right? And then it allows me in a very lightweight way to build a community of other people who think in a similar fashion to how I think, which is life first and in business second. And we do that with our lightweight chat. We're doing some workshops, and I chose it because it's not a big money making venture for me. This isn't some profitable 7-figure business that I'm building. I'm building kind of the next thing for me, my second mountain, if you will. I don't really want to like launch courses anymore, or do coaching. I'm not super into that. I just want to build a small community of people who think like I think, and go deep, not wide. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well, it does, and I'm going to quote you on that. My second mountain. I love that. One thing that I'm on Substack only for 8 months now,
Mhm.
and I have been deeply touched and surprised and everything that you want by the fact that the moment I joined, there was this sense of community. And I know that on LinkedIn and on other platforms as well, we are using this word as a buzzword a lot lately,
Sure.
build a community around you, blah, blah. But here it really is, so people are really interested in actually building something authentic and engaging without even asking and being there. So I love that fact. And I'm so happy you mentioned it because it's different indeed. And I hope it will stay different, except for my background noise. I'm trying to go outside actually. Maybe
Oh,
that would
you're
be
you're good.
better.
I can hear you just fine. So, and when you jump on mute when I'm talking, it's perfect. So don't even sweat it.
Okay, so I owe it to my. I think I'm fine here.
Yeah.
So anyways, now given your and obviously you're not giving up on LinkedIn, right? But I see many creators, including myself. We came from LinkedIn in this case and other platforms to Substack. Would you recommend this jump? Would you say that we should keep both? Would you, from your perspective, right? Being a business owner, multiple business owner, and a creator, and an inspirational figure for other creators, do you think it's a good move right now to completely, I don't know, leave other platforms behind and come to Substack, or keep both? What's your perspective on that? I'm sure that this is on many people's minds.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for other people's business models or aspirations, but I think Substack right now is going through a renaissance period where a lot of what I think of as good writers, and by the way, that there's tons of great writers who've been on Substack for years. So, but maybe some of the more recognizable writers from other platforms have come over, and I think there's probably two things that are happening. One thing that's happening is that people are getting sick of um, doing more and getting less, right? So like platforms are so crowded because AI has essentially eliminated the friction, right? Anybody can go on and write content that sounds like me. You just drop my content in there and say, write like this person, right? That took me a long time to learn. So everyone is joining these platforms, and the platforms are getting crowded, and I think they're getting tired, right? So I think that's sort of number one. And then number two is I think they're burning out on content production. And so they're finding Substack to be a true creative outlet. I actually think that Substack as a platform rewards you for your creativity, whereas other platforms reward you for your ability to be divisive or polarizing or
Mm.
mean or
Or algorithm?
and contrarian, right? Like there are so many different reasons. And I talked about this again at this recent event I was at where, I don't really spend much time on X or Twitter anymore because I just find it to be mean, right? I just find it to be a place where everyone's concerned about cultural wars. And I'm not super interested in writing about that or interacting with that. So to answer your question, it depends. If you're a creative person and profit is not goal number one, I think Substack is a great
Mm-hmm.
place to build an audience or to build a community or just simply to creatively write. But I also think that because
Yeah.
there's such a renaissance period on the platform, that there is great discovery top of funnel. And so if you want to be discovered by more people, Substack's a great place where there's not, at least to me in the first 2 weeks, it doesn't feel like as much noise.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a fabulous way to put it. And I'm going to go through some of the questions as well
Sure.
here. And of course, there are challenges on every platform because many people ask, how about engagement, how to grow? There are challenges on every platform. If you start from zero, or even if you start with an audience, it's the same thing. You need to engage, deliver the right value. But if you would start from scratch right now, if you just would be Justin, not Justin Welsh,
Yeah.
okay, what would you choose, and which topic as well would you choose?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really enjoying Substack. So if I had to start over, I might start here. Um, uh, for me, the issue of like topic has always been an interesting one because I think if you force yourself inside of a box, so imagine that you want to do, you know, landing pages for course creators, right? I'm just picking something out of thin air. Like, I don't know, you'd better be interested in that topic for the next 20 years of your life if you want to write about it. And the way that I'm built, like my personality is I lose interest in topics every so often. And so instead of writing it, like picking a topic and going hard, while that might be the best way to build a business, I'd much rather write about things I'm interested in. So the best way to grow an audience or a personal brand is to be an interesting person in the first place, right? Like you can't fake being
Yeah,
interesting online, or it's significantly harder. If you're doing cool and interesting things offline and you write about those online, that generally translates to a better brand, which I really like. And so if I were giving people,
yeah,
some guidelines or some advice, and again, my advice may not be right, it would be to be your, like, what are you doing? What are you doing interesting offline? Write about that online, but don't just write about it, learn how to
yeah,
communicate, right? There are thousands, if not millions, of
yeah,
famous writers over the course of the last century. Go study how the great writers write. Because if you look at people with big audiences, for the most part, it's not always true, but for the most part, they've learned to become effective communicators. They can write well, they can video well, they can tell stories well,
yeah.
maybe they do audio well. They are a master at their medium. They don't rely on hacks and tricks. They're good communicators through their medium of choice.
Yeah. I'm so glad you put it this way. I get tons of questions as well on how we grow on what's the best topic niche, to monetize or to grow with, what's fashionable right now, what to write about. And you obviously put it so eloquently there, but my straight answer to that will also be, besides being passionate about and being an interesting person, know the stuff. So you cannot write about something just because it's fashionable. You cannot, I don't know, write about how to grow on LinkedIn just because Justin did it, so fabulously. You have to know your topic as well, and you have to be interested in it, and maybe have spent a fair enough amount of time having done it successfully, at least for yourself, before you are actually putting it out there. So nothing really just happens overnight. It happens when you
Correct.
put fully your heart in it, and experience and passion, and continuously documenting yourself.
Correct.
So I'm glad we put that at peace, because everyone is asking, how to niche down, what's a good niche, and all of that.
Yeah.
um, there is another worry that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
There's another worry that I see also in some of the comments here. So, oh my God, the big creators are coming right now on Substack. So, what will happen? Will it be placed for me anymore? Maybe I'm not growing that fast anymore. Maybe people are not growing as fast right now as they did it, I don't know, 2 years ago on Substack. My view on that, and I'm looking forward to your view, is that the moment bigger creators are coming here on Substack, the moment Justin came on Substack, he's bringing his audience with him as well. So instead of worrying about being too crowded, celebrate the fact that you're having even a wider audience to actually have a look at what you're doing, because I think it's a fabulous opportunity. And the fact that people who don't need to build an audience anymore are here, it means that it's the right place to be, and it means that they will only bring in a bigger audience to help you out and me out, as a smaller creator, to grow and have more eyes on what we do.
Yeah.
Um,
I
what's
agree with that. You know,
your what's your take on that, Justin?
yeah, I agree with that. I guess it comes from like a holistic way of thinking, which is I don't necessarily think platform by platform. So for example, like I try not to say like, "Oh, what's the next big platform?" I didn't choose Substack because I thought
Mm-hmm.
Substack was the next big platform, by the way. And like the fact that Dan Coe, who's a friend of mine, and I launched the same week, I had no idea that was happening. We never talked about it. It just happened. It just was random, right? Maybe he's going through the same creative expression that I'm going through. And so I think none of these
We need to bring him
platforms.
live too.
Yeah, he's a very, very good guy. None of these platforms are zero sum. So we're not competing with each other, is how I look at it, right? There's enough
Yeah,
business and people out there for all of us. And what I've often found in my life and in business is that the moment you start thinking that it's zero sum, where it's me or you or some other
yeah,
person, and we're all ripping at scraps of meat, like it actually becomes much harder to build an effective business, right? because you get pessimistic, you get competitive,
Mm.
and what actually builds a business is optimism and collaboration. So, what I would encourage people to do is to think about this as a wide open arena where everybody can be successful. And the more often that you work with people, like here you and I are having a conversation, like the more that people do things like this,
Yeah.
the more likely over the long period of time, and business is a long journey, that you'll be really successful. So
Yeah.
don't think short term, don't be pessimistic, and don't think of it as a zero sum game. It just becomes a much harder mindset to operate within, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think everyone agrees here with you. I can see some of the comments, and I want to share something else. Justin and I didn't know each other before,
Mhm.
so we're connected on LinkedIn. I'm a big fan of his work. I admire his
Thank you.
work, but probably he never heard of me. Let's be honest. So he probably checked right now just my Substack and LinkedIn, and still he said yes to coming live and joining this conversation and opening up his time to all of us. So this is not a competition. This is not about
Mhm.
big or small. It's about creating something together. And I give this as an example because I admire the fact that Justin, you didn't say who are you. I have 1 million subscribers and you have, I don't know, 50K on Substack. What do you want from me? You actually just jump to the opportunity and say, yeah, why not? Let's just find the right time. And that's what not only this platform but being social means. Reaching out, asking questions, and being human, and seeing if you can contribute with something to the other person. And yeah, just going ahead with it without fear of, I don't know, that person is just taking my piece, or is earning more, or has more likes, or has fewer likes. And I think that this is the essence of what we're trying to build here as well on Substack.
I agree. And
So thanks for that.
I've been fortunate enough in my career where and by the way, like, as much as it may seem like, oh, I've got a lot of followers or whatever, by the way, followers and subscribers is not a good proxy for how important somebody is, right? Like, just because you have a lot of followers or fans or subscribers doesn't make you important. It doesn't make you smart. It doesn't make you anything other than a pretty good marketer, right? Let's just be real with it, and let's be honest and transparent. And
But we
and
did some
so
work for that.
yeah, for sure. But like, there's a lot of people who are 100 times bigger than me, who, when I reached out to them, or when I was connected to them, did the exact same thing to me. They said, "Sure, let's jump on a call," and I was floored. I had James Clear was kind enough to jump on a call with me twice, and I thought,
Nice.
this guy's so much bigger than me, I can't even fathom it. And like, so I always think about paying it forward, because 10 years from now, you'll have a million followers or whatever. And then somebody else younger than you or with less experience than you, who's coming up and has 10,000 followers or whatever it might be, will ask you the favor, and it'll just go
For
and
sure.
go and go and go. And that's how the ecosystem works if you work it well.
Yes, I love that. And I agree. And again, thank you for doing this. And I know I'm not the only one with whom you are doing it. And hopefully we'll see also you and Dan, on a live together
Yeah,
very, very soon.
you will.
What's the deal with unsubscribe?
Yeah.
I'll admit, when I first saw the name, I was like, is he inviting us to unsubscribe? What a smart, marketing trick here. So what's the deal with unsubscribe?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about it?
Sure. There's no trick. Like, my wife and I, we walk a lot. So we take like these walks in the morning. Sometimes we do it by ourselves, or I'll go to the gym or whatever, but we often find ourselves walking. And she was talking about a salad at a local restaurant here in the Hudson Valley, and it's a salad that if you add chicken and egg, it becomes $41. And we were like, we looked at this menu, and she said, I unsubscribed from that. I unsubscribed from $41 salads. Like, I'm not paying that. And we just kind of laughed. And so that became this word that we use when we think something's ridiculous. We're like, I'm just going to unsubscribe from that. Right. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with this second half of my career, I thought about two things that I wanted to unsubscribe from. The first thing that I wanted to unsubscribe from was the constant noise and anger and division and fakery and performance and posturing of social media. So that I am trying to unsubscribe from. And so I felt like Substack, while I'm sure it has its own quirks and its own performance, would be a great place to do that. And the second thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to unsubscribe from the lifestyle that I think has become very commonplace, not just here in America, but all over the world, which is, you know, spending 66% of your time doing things you don't like, only to work to retirement and then fail. And I just think those are both things I wanted to unsubscribe from. So, I know the word's confusing when it comes to like, are you unsubscribing or subscribing to my newsletter? I get that. But this, again, this isn't some profitable money making huge venture for me. That's not the way that I'm looking at it. So if it cost me a few bucks, like, oh well. But that's what I wanted to call it. And what I'm writing about at Unsubscribe is the intersection of life and business. They're short 2-minute essays that are on a very specific topic that is simply an observational think piece. I'm inspired by guys like Derek Sivers. I'm inspired by writers like Brianna Wiest, who write really great essays that are very short. And so I'm kind of taking that approach to thinking about life and business because, quite candidly, I'm pretty sick of writing tactical internet stuff on how to build brands and businesses. I've done it for 6 years. I think I've written about all I can think of on the topic. And so I wanted to take a new stab at something.
I love that. I have a funny question here actually. How do you ask
Sure.
people to subscribe to unsubscribe? So, that's fun. Subscribe to unsubscribe. Is it
Right.
probably just like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I think everyone here really, really agrees with you, and they want to unsubscribe from that. Heck, I want to unsubscribe from a lot of noise, including the noise in the parking. But I think now it's a little better. Um, from your recent experience of this, your second mountain and the last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
um, did you face any challenges, in adapting to Substack whatsoever, getting probably not necessarily audience, but did you face any challenges that maybe some other creators could face as well and they could relate to? Because I want everyone to know that um, even with experience, there can be things that can happen that you will feel all the time. If there are, maybe there aren't. I don't know. I haven't reached your mountain yet. But if there are, can you tell us if you are facing any challenges in the recent last 2 weeks on Substack to make it a little more concrete as a creator, and on a new platform that I don't know others could probably relate to?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I
You
faced a
should
lot of
say no. You should say none.
no,
You should say it's perfect.
no, no. I've actually faced a lot of challenges, but the challenges are sort of self-created. So I didn't want to build this. I could have built this on Circle. I could have built this on Ghost. I could have built this on a number of platforms that I cobbled together that would have probably eliminated some of the technical challenges, right? So, for example, on Substack, you only have the Substack chat, and if you want to do workshops, it's not really built for that, right? It's not built to be a membership or community platform. So I've had a lot of technical challenges that I've had to think through. And a lot of times folks will say, well, why don't you just do XYZ instead? And I can assure everyone that as I think through each thing that I could potentially do, there are always pros and there are always cons, right? And so I think just getting used to the technology has been challenging. I think establishing what unsubscribe even is has been challenging. It's not, there's not beautiful landing pages on Substack. It's not a place to build marketing pages. So communicating your message and your value becomes significantly harder than, say, should I build it on a platform that is designed for that? And then I think last but
Yeah.
not least is just like, what is the culture of the place? Because I know the
Mm.
culture of LinkedIn, I know the culture of X, I know the culture of Instagram. I don't know it of Substack. So I might come over and write something on Substack that I've written that's relatively similar to something I've written on LinkedIn or X, and it might bomb, right? And so I think it's a matter of understanding what are the people here for? What do they want to hear about or learn about? What kind of writing resonates with this audience? But I think for myself, what I'm trying to do, and someone wrote it in the chat earlier, is just just write about what I want to write about. And if people like it, great. And if they don't,
Hmm.
that's a bummer. But this is my creative outlet, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I was actually hoping you'll say that no, guys, when you reach this point, it's all easy peasy. You don't have to worry about anything. All goes
Mhm.
well. I just delegate and everything. But well, tough luck.
Yeah, I'll tell you
I have.
something, Anna, that's really interesting. And I said this at this event that I was recently at. I'm a relatively thoughtful person. I try and think through things intelligently before making a decision. I try and be calm. I try and be confident in my writing. All of those things I hope come across to the audience. In real life, I have high anxiety. I worry about a lot of things. Um, I get stressed out when things don't work well. So it's not easy peasy just because you get a million followers.
Mm.
Like, I think a lot of people say that it is because it's part of their marketing pitch, um, but it's not. And no matter how big you get, 100,000, 500,000, a million, a million and a half, you're still a human being with a brain. And most of our brains don't function all that well when we get upset. And so I'm struggling with the technology sometimes. I struggle with the messaging sometimes. And when I make a mistake, I get pretty frustrated with myself. So I've asked my membership group to kind of have patience as I'm trying to figure this out and how to best deliver it. And I think that's the best thing that we can do nowadays is just have a little more patience, if that makes sense.
That's that's nice. And I think ultimately it's a responsibility, right? And the more followers you have, the more eyes on you, the more responsible you get, because it's not only about your.
I think I lost you there, Anna. Oh well. Hey everyone. Do we have her still? All right. Well, we lost Anna, but maybe I'll just take over and give you guys a short piece of advice. That would be helpful if I were you in coming on and starting on a new platform. So, one thing that I often think about when building an audience is I think from the back to the front. So, the end point to the beginning. And in the end, like what you have to do is ultimately enjoy what you're doing because consistency matters, right? The people who are most successful on any platform, whether it's Substack or LinkedIn or Twitter, they're consistent. They show up every single day for 10 days, 100 days, 1,000 days, or in my case, almost 2,300 days in a row. So consistency is really how you build a business, but you hear that all the time, right? You hear that consistency is important. But what goes into being consistent? What goes into being consistent is doing things that you enjoy. It's a lot easier to be consistent when you spend your time doing things that you enjoy. And to me, and a lot of people are asking about niche or whatever, pick something that you enjoy doing. I didn't say a passion, not your passion, but something that you can make money doing, but that you also could see yourself doing for a very long period of time. And then put it into a medium that you also enjoy. So if you enjoy recording a podcast, make it a podcast. If you enjoy recording your own videos, make it a video. If you're like me and you love writing, write. People ask me why I don't do stuff like this. You don't see me on video a lot. You won't hear me on, hosting a podcast ever. It's because I don't particularly enjoy those things all that much. And so, in order to be consistent, I have to love what I'm doing, and I love writing. That's why I write every day, right? So, if you work backwards from consistency being the core of being successful at business and loving what you do being the core of being consistent, right? Then you got to figure out how to be good at the thing you love doing. So you back it up one step. So, how do you get really good at that medium in that topic? And generally, there's one thing that matters, and it's going deep and studying that very specific thing. So, for example, when I'm writing about solopreneurship, I wanted to be consistent. I wanted to write, but I had to be good at writing and I had to be good at building a one person business. So every day I spent all my time studying and trying to perfect my one person business. How do you build better systems? How do you have more automation? How do you outsource to a VA if you want to hire one? How do you make sure that your customer success works correctly, right? And then when you're getting really good at those things, how do you communicate those things effectively? So that had to be about being a better writer. So not only do I read books on writing, not only do I study writers that I admire, but I write every day, right? And the stuff that you see that makes it onto social media, whether it's LinkedIn or X or Substack, is one of 10 things I've written that day, right? And then I can hand pick the thing that I think is the best or most useful to the audience. So it's really this sort of linear pattern, right? You have to be consistent. In order to be consistent, you have to love what you do. In order to love what you do, you have to start by getting really good at it. So I think about business and kind of life in that way, where you have this linear thing. So I hope that's a really helpful piece of context for being good at almost anything, but certainly social media. I know we lost Anna, but I wanted to make sure that I kind of left you guys with something that I think is useful, and that was a useful way that it was explained to me. Um, if you like what I had to say and you think it would be useful to spend some time inside of my membership, you can find it very easily on Substack. It's just called Unsubscribe. I think the URL is theunsubscribed.co. Thanks for spending time with me. Sorry we lost Anna at the end, so hopefully that was a last minute useful tip. And I appreciate you guys and hope you have a wonderful Tuesday. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.